Welcome to the Survivor to Thriver show with your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Are you a survivor of abuse or other trauma? Are you tired of feeling stuck, silent, and stressed all the time? This is the podcast people from all over the world join in to learn exactly how to stop suffering and start living with more inner peace and joy. Are you ready to eliminate suffering from your life and transform from a survivor to thriver? Then congratulations, you are in the right place. Let's get started. Hey, welcome back to the Survivor to Thriver show. I'm so happy to have you with me today because we are talking about a really, really important topic. That is, how do we act in the face of our fears? And I was sharing with you in yesterday's episode that there are three main components that allow us to do it most effectively. Number one, acting with courage. More precisely, to make a firm commitment and intention to feel the fear and do the deed anyway. For me, that is the definition of acting with courage, and that's the first component. The second component is about treating ourselves with compassion and empathy. And the third component is focusing on generating peace and joy in our life. So yesterday I went into, we were basically focusing on component number one. And today it's time for us to focus on component number two. So just to really quickly put things in context for you, in the context of my story, I just want to give you a quick reminder. So I was sharing with you the example of how one of the biggest fears that I've experienced in my life was the fear of getting hurt again, of being taken advantage of and being manipulated and abused again. And it took me 12 years to break through that fear and act with courage, to arrive at that moment of acting with courage where I was still feeling that fear, but I did the deed anyway, right? And that deed was to go and tell my very first person the truth about what had happened with me and reach out to them for help and support. It took me 12 years to break through that fear. So you can imagine just how strong that fear was for me. Right? It controlled my life. It controlled my, it was like a driving factor in my life, as a matter of fact, for a good 12 years. So it was a huge breakthrough that I had in overcoming that fear and being able to act in the face of it. And I learned these very important lessons in how we can act in the face of our fears in that process. And I'll tell you what did not work for me first. What did not work for me for those 12 years, and I did a lot of it, was blaming and shaming myself and feeling guilty and making myself feel more guilty. See, because when I was blaming and shaming myself, I'd be saying things to myself like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just open my mouth and speak and ask for the help I need? Even when I know XYZ person and I love them and I trust them, why can I not just open my mouth and speak? What's wrong with me? Why am I so pathetic? Why am I so weak? Why can't I, why do I feel so afraid? Why can't I deal with this? This is what's wrong with me. That I cannot, this is why I got in the trouble that I did, is because I cannot speak. If I had spoken up at that time when I was having that experience when that person was abusing me, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Maybe I could have stopped it. But what's wrong with me that I cannot speak up to protect myself, and now I can't speak up to ask for help and support? I can't even speak up to help myself. What's wrong with me? And as I'm blaming myself and shaming myself and laying all this guilt trip on me, one part of my rationale, I guess, consciously or unconsciously, was, well, this will make me see sense and make me speak up. It's like I'll shame myself into speaking up, into doing the right thing. But in fact, what it really did was it made me feel even worse than I had been feeling. It just, and it had a huge impact on my sense of self-esteem and my sense of self-confidence. And it actually, was part of the reason that I began to feel depressed. Right? Because when you lose your self-esteem, you lose your sense of confidence, you also begin to lose your sense of hope. You begin to lose your sense of hope, it's very natural that you may then start to feel depressed. Once I started to feel depressed, I started to lose motivation to do anything. And it can be a real vicious cycle. You can really get trapped in this downward spiral to the point where, hey, this is like when people become suicidal. Because they just lose so much hope and they can't see any way out. Now, the good news is that while there are some people who get so stuck in this kind of negative cycle that unfortunately they're not able to pull themselves out of it, and they may end up taking their lives or becoming so suicidal that they have that kind of extreme reaction. The good news is that for the vast majority of us, humans are naturally resilient. We naturally want to live. We have a very strong survival instinct. So even when we lose confidence, even when we experience depression and so forth, it's not just a straight downward cycle. Usually, even when we're feeling depressed or begin to feel depressed, it's sort of like an up and down cycle. it's like riding a wave. It's like, there are times when you feel a lot worse, and then the wave starts to flatten out, so you start to feel better. And then you may start to feel worse again, and then you may start to feel better again. And if you have the skills, if you have the ability to be able to, like, when, the wave starts to flatten out, so you're not feeling quite as bad, if you can take any action to help yourself start to feel better and start to move back up, but in a more positive direction, then you can begin to overcome and get yourself out of that depression. Or if you're lucky enough, maybe there are other people in your life and you're plugged into systems and of help and support, so that even if you are not able to do it for yourself, there are people around you, the systems you're plugged into are there to support you through that process and bring you back up and out, rather than just a continuous downward cycle. So the good news is that for the vast majority of us, we have enough resilience, we have enough skill, enough instinct, enough of a survival instinct that we will be able to pull ourselves out of the depression that we may fall into temporarily. So it won't last forever. And one of the things that can really help us to start to shift out of this state of depression and get on a more upward spiral or cycle is to respond to ourselves, or if you're dealing with a loved one who's going through this kind of who's caught in this kind of downward cycle, is to respond to yourself or your loved one with compassion and empathy, where you allow them to feel that they're being heard, that they're being listened to, that you care for them, that you care for yourself. You care about how they're feeling, and you're there to help them and support them through their dark time. And to let them know that they're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with them for how they're feeling. This is one of the most important lessons that I have learned in my life. And it has changed my life for the better. And my relationships for the better. For 4 years, I was working as a crisis counselor on a sexual assault and domestic violence hotline. And this was one of the most important lessons that we got trained in, is that when somebody is feeling down, they're feeling depressed, or they're going through a crisis, a lot of times what we naturally want to do is jump straight into problem solving and begin to give solutions to that person of, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? What if we do this? Because you want to, help them, and you want to pull them out of that situation and change it for that, and help them change it as soon as possible. But the thing is that when you're feeling down, when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling panicked, when you're feeling, in that kind of, or you're feeling that huge amount of stress or fear or whatever it is, you're not really in a state to be able to engage in effective problem solving and be able to effectively consider your options, let alone effectively evaluate what your best options may be, and so on and so forth. First thing you want to do is help the person to calm down and get to a more neutral state, or hopefully even a positive state, where they're feeling more comforted, where they're feeling listened to and supported, and they're able to start feeling that sense of hope again, that yes, there's a solution, that I'm not alone, that there's a way out, and there's people and structures that I can tap into for help and support. And once you're feeling better in this way, then you can start to think more clearly and think more rationally and, come up with better solutions for yourself and be more open to listening to the solutions that other people may have to suggest for you. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is a really, really key important lesson. So I want you to just kind of sit with this idea and reflect on it and think about, how you can apply this in your life, where you may have missed applying it in your life, right? And just consider it, okay? So because we are out of time for today, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this show right here for today, and then we'll pick up from where we're leaving off tomorrow, okay? And in the meanwhile, I want to give you a quick reminder that our show is now on iTunes. So if you have an iTunes account, please log into your iTunes account and find our show. You can search for it by the name of our show, Survivor to Thriver Show, or by using my name, Samia Bano. And then please leave us a 5-star review so that you can help us or help other people find this show more easily. All right? So go to your iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, and until I connect with you in our next episode, I wish you lots of peace and joy.